I'm Miss Chrissy.
And I'm Steve.
And you're listening to JAGcast, episode number 142, the podcast of the Jenkintown Arts Garage,
where we explore the intersection of the arts and technology. And today we have a guest that really epitomizes that concept, don't we, Chrissy?
We do. So today we have Clyde Evans Jr., who is the director of the International Museum. I want to make sure I say it correctly.
Of dance.
Yep. And he recently did a project called Danceology of Hip Hop, which literally says, exploring the intersection of technology and dance.
Yeah, it was fate. Cool. Also, during my research, I found out that Clyde is an adjunct instructor of hip hop at the Westfall College of Media Arts and Design at Drexel University, which is my alma mater and where I work.
Yep. And I actually met Clyde 100 million years ago at Bates Dance Festival when he performed with Rennie Harris. I think it was the late 90s or the early 2000s. So he has been around in the Philly dance scene for a very, very long time.
Yeah, so we've been trying to get this interview, this discussion set up for a little while. We've had scheduling problems, we've had technical problems, but we've overcome the hurdles. And so now I think it's time to introduce our guest. Welcome to the show, Clyde.
Hey. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, it was a fun experience trying to get the audio working. It's always something with these podcasts.
I can dance, but that audio thing I can't do.
Yeah,
I agree with you. Yeah. Leave the tech to somebody else. Good thing you have a young son who can help you with these these tech things.
It's the truth.
Yeah. So what have you been up to?
Gosh, I've been up to I guess moving things along in my career. I love teaching, and I guess I'm kind of getting back into the performance part of hip hop dance. For a long time, I've been teaching at Drexel University. It's funny because the head of my department, Miriam Jaguar, she had said to me, "Oh, congratulations," through LinkedIn, on your 13th anniversary at Drexel. I'm like, 13 years.
Oh, I've been there even longer, man. I know it's awful. It's you see those come up, and you're like, what happened to?
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm like, did I fall asleep at the wheel? It's just been it's been interesting that it's been so long. But quite honestly, Drexel provided me the ability to be stateside as a performer. I traveled all over the world, and so that with a family makes it really difficult to maintain status in your household. I remember my wife saying "Oh, you're like a visitor." You just come home for a little bit and head back out on the road. So I concentrated and focused on teaching for quite a many years. I taught at Drexel, still teach at Drexel and Wesleyan in Connecticut. Fun. I would make that trip every Thursday and Friday. I would be there as well, and sometimes I think I did it on a Tuesday and a Thursday too, as well for a couple of years. And I also teach at Montgomery County Community College, as well as some local dance studios in the Westchester and Malvern areas. And so teaching was just something, like I said, just allowed me to be here. And so that was not something I was thinking oh, I'm going to love this. I'm going to, whatever, because most of the dancers I began to teach were non-dancers. And so they just all kind of wanted to be a part of hip hop. And, I guess they take it for many reasons, but most of all, people just wanted to be able to kind of fit in. And so that's where I was. And now I'm looking to get back into more performing.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. You don't really expect a lot of dancers at Drexel.
Yeah.
It's so that's,
there is a dance department. There is a dance department.
There is a department. Well, I mean, there's a philosophy department too. I did a minor in that, but it's you don't go there for it.
They have a program there, right?
Is it a major? Is it a major program?
Yeah. They have a dance major program. But I guess the thing is definitely the caveat is in hip hop though. You know what I mean? So in hip hop it's not a major. No.
It's not a major. Yeah. So I didn't know it was a major program. It's is a minor program then?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even that. It's like an elective.
Oh,
it's
just like an elective. But I just thought it was fun. When I was looking you up, it was one of the first things that pops up is you were instructor at over at Media Arts. I was like, really? We have a hip hop class? I was like, that's cool. That's cool. There's a lot of cool stuff at the university. It really is. It has an eclectic bunch of electives you could take. So that was really cool. And then the main reason though we were talking to you was this Danceology of Hip Hop thing, and I could not find any details about this. So maybe you can just explain, like, it was such an enticing a concept in the marketing, but I don't know anything about it. So what is the Danceology of Hip Hop?
Yeah, so the Danceology of Hip Hop is like, I guess it's kind of a play on the etymology of a word. So there's a beginning, and then you can see how things kind of evolve, and then, it's like the expression of. So that's really the definition of the Danceology. But as you mentioned, I'm thinking like, ooh, technology also. But yes, the Danceology is in fact, we like to think about where things began and how was it expressed, and just how is it evolving, because specifically one of the most, I guess, the biggest misnomer in all of hip hop would be the moonwalk dance, right? And so Michael Jackson is known for making the moonwalk famous. Everyone, when they see that dance move, they're like, there's the moonwalk. But what we found out that originally, it had many iterations. One of the original names of it was called the backslide. And then they also have the tap slide because it was created by tap dancers. And then we also heard of the get off, right? Because the tap dancers used it to get off stage. So it went through many iterations, and now we have the moonwalk. The moonwalk actually is not the correct term for that move. It is indeed the backslide. But, as it goes through its phases, as past this prologue, we look and we think like, well, what might it be called in the future? What might someone change the name to, because maybe they never heard of it being called the moonwalk, but they've seen the move and they imitated it and they do it well, and they get famous for it. So what's so interesting about that is that, it's time that we begin to kind of put things down, or I guess codify it is really what the terminology is. Like all the steps in ballet are codified. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like,
hip hop is not. It's actually very challenging sometimes to make sense of it because it's not codified. And I mean, tap can be like that too, but not to the same degree. You know what I mean?
I do. So what we're doing is we're actually using technology to do that. And so I'm actually the director of education for the Museum of Dance. The founder of the Museum of Dance, her name is Hilary Palanza. And she actually did a presentation out in San Francisco on archiving dance using technology. And it just so happened that Microsoft and Adobe were in the audience. And so Microsoft has a mixed reality studio over in San Francisco. And they were like, oh, you should come by and begin to kind of hash out some of your ideas. You can use the tech over there. And so when she told me about that, I was like, oh, I have an idea for it. And so it was the codification of these moves. So what they did was they have a room with 106 cameras in the round, and it's called volumetric capture. So it captures the real person. Motion capture is when they would put you in that suit with the little nodules all around your body, kind of mapping out your face and all that stuff. And but volumetric capture is the capture of the real person. So with this capture, you can see my clothes moving, my eyes are moving, everything on my body is moving and being captured in 360 degrees of angles. And so what the thought is that if a student of mine takes my class and then they can, well, obviously as a student, it's my class. Okay. Anyway, they can take my class and then I can show them a dance move, and then they can have access to this vocabulary of movement through their phone. And through their phone, they can put me on their desk, they can put me on the floor, what have you, and they can observe this movement from 360 degrees as a reference tool. Yeah.
That's very cool.
When I was, that sounds amazing. When I was doing martial arts a lot, I used to do Shotokan karate. And one of the things we did as students was we would look at the videos. There's some famous recordings, at least in the dojos I was in, some famous recordings of the katas being done, right?
Mm.
And that's exactly what we would do. We only had a video, but the video is recorded from different angles. This was done, I don't know how many decades ago. So they would have at least, I think, 2 angles on these recordings. And so one of the things we would do is watch them from the one angle or the other angle, and we'd be practicing them. But we would use it as a frame of reference. If we had something like what you're talking about, that would have been even better, because then you could have looked at it from any angle. And I think that's really cool. So did you did this all happen? Like, did you start doing this in San Francisco? Is that where you had to go to do this at?
Yeah.
Yeah?
These studios
So-
are not a dime
Yeah.
a dozen.
No, I didn't think so.
Yeah, I can't. I wouldn't think so.
So you had to go. You've been just crisscrossing the continent to do this work. That's it's impressive. And so how far have you gotten with your codifying effort here?
Okay, so what we did was we did about 10 dances, because the technology is extremely expensive to I guess it's
Run.
like terabytes of data.
Yeah, it's
so
a lot. Yeah.
in fact, it's so expensive. When I spoke to Drexel about it, they were like, listen, we don't have this even in our budget for the future, because it's so expensive. It costs for us, and we were a nonprofit, so it was $5,000 a minute to render the video.
Wow.
What's so really cool is, like, it's like a video game when the finished product is, it's just highly detailed, and again, you can see it from any angle. But indeed, I got about maybe 10 dances completed, and so that was $20,000.
Yeah, jeez.
Wow.
$20,000 for that.
Wow.
But what I did was we recorded it in different time signatures. So what we would call quarter time, and then half time, and then tempo. And if you're watching video, nowadays you have the capability, even on YouTube, of course, to like slow it down. Half time or 3 times a quarter time, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But watching a video in slow motion, while it helps to be able to identify things, doing it in slow motion is even better, because you don't have whatever the weirdness is of the way your weight moves. And so it's to imitate, if you will, the way you would teach it in class. Right. And so, you can't obviously slow down a person while they're doing it in real time. But indeed, yes, I had to go all the way over there, because the only one in the United States in terms of their technology, their specs, is in San Francisco. The next closest one is in France. And the next closest to that, next closest to that is in Singapore.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So when did you do all of this?
We did it, I believe, last January, 23.
So very recent.
And yeah. We had a lot of COVID restrictions and issues with that, and so we couldn't get in there any sooner. And we finally got in there, and then after we captured what we captured, the studio closed. Microsoft,
Oh my goodness.
yes, Microsoft has moved away now from that type of capture. So they shut down. They were a part of a huge layoffs in tech. I think like 10,000 jobs or so.
Yeah, there's been a lot of layoffs.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you were like maybe the only person in the world who has
Probably
this
definitely
data?
only the hip hop person.
Yeah, like, well, you're the only person who
Kind
has
of
this data then.
amazing.
Well, I will say there is other volumetric capture rigs. I know that there is one in Philadelphia. There's one in Texas. But I wouldn't say but. I would just say what I've seen of what they can do, it's not as clear. This technology that Microsoft created is about now 14 years old, 13 to 14 years old. And, when these companies, they create tech, they're just like, all right, we've got this cool thing. Developers, let's see what you can do with it. Let's see what people will do with it. And so in all the years that they've been bringing people in, it's been very limited in terms of how people were going to use it. But in the way that we were going to use it was going to be evergreen. And so once they saw what we were doing, emails started going across Microsoft like, oh my gosh, look at what these guys are doing. And we think that this is what the technology was actually built for. And that was from the director at the time. His name is Jason Waskey. And, upon seeing it, he was just like, wow, this is so cool. This is something that will move the needle.
Wow. So are you actually using this, the recordings, or I don't know what we would call them? So
technically, I guess this would be like a proof of concept. And you have the capture, and the capture right now is being stored in the Microsoft cloud. I think it's
the
called Azure.
Cloud.
Yeah, Azure. Cloud. Yep.
Yeah, I'm a software developer by trade. I'm familiar.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so there's being stored there, and then we are on the Eighth Wall platform, and so we do need to get a platform built that would be more suitable to the needs and the purposes of the use, and so that's where Drexel comes in. So we were actually engaging them to build a better platform for us to be able to use for the students. And so conversations have begun around doing that. And hopefully we'll continue and end up with let's do it.
Cool.
That would be cool. Yeah. So we're just to be clear, anyone listening, we're not actually we won't speak for Drexel or anything.
Yeah.
It's just coincidental that we both are work there. But I do think that the colleges in general are always interested in doing innovative stuff, and Drexel too. Drexel is especially interested, I think, in innovative stuff. So I hope it works out. I have not heard anything about this particular project, but that's not surprising because there's lots of stuff going on that I don't hear about. But you said you're on Eighth Wall, which I had never heard of until just now either. But apparently, it powers the world's web AR, which is cool. I'm a Apple developer, like on the Apple platform. So we've been talking a lot about the Vision Pro and augmented reality stuff a lot lately, and been playing around with that kind of code. So this is all in the same kind of family of concepts. There definitely seems to be a movement or an attempted movement in the tech sphere towards this kind of thing: mixed reality, augmented reality, virtual reality, however you want to split the hairs about what those are. So I think that what you're doing now is pioneering. Maybe they'll be able to use this stuff in a future. I always thought it would be cool to try to mix dance with virtual reality or dance with augmented reality. Like Chrissy and I have talked about it before, and like you're just kind of limited by the technology you have. You know, like how you could record people and you can take like 3D assets and stuff and put them into the scene, but it's like you can't easily see it as an audience member. You can put it on a screen, but unless you have goggles or something, it's not really an experience, which is cool. But I don't know. So the Eighth Wall platform. So the way that you're using it is, I guess, through like a web browser? Like you're looking at it on a screen, or do you have any kind of other setup yet? Have you?
Yeah. You're looking at it on the screen, so you can grab your phone. And I wish I had the QR. Oh my gosh, I do have it. 1 second.
Perfect.
Nice.
I'm gonna slide over here, and this is the QR code, right? So
there you go.
Oh, that's cool.
There we go. So if anybody wants to scan it, International Museum of Dance. Yeah, and I'm not sure. Right now we have 4 dances up on that. Oh,
cool.
Yeah. So that. Oh gosh.
Oh yeah. So this is cool. So there are different dances per.
There are different
code,
dances.
right.
Yeah. So you can scan it, and once you see it, I'll just adjust it this way. Once you see it, I believe you have access to all of them if you can. Once you get into one. I'm not certain. Again, I'm not the techie guy. I can show you how to dance though. But so we have that, and once you go there, you can then use these dances. You can see it through your phone, and you can put me wherever in the room. You can even do it. You can even put me in the palm of your hand, if you will.
That's super cool.
So anything.
I just sent it to you, Steve.
Anything that allows you to. I'll just put these back here.
You sent me a link?
Yeah, I think so. I tried. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll share whatever I can in the show notes, and we put it up on screen if you're watching it, so you'll be able to scan it that way.
That's very cool.
That's cool. The other day,
I Clyde in my hand.
Yeah, well, the other day, Chrissy, when I was playing around with that Alien AR demo. So
Alien somewhere in my house.
So in my software developer group, Philly Coca Heads is the Apple developer group. Yeah. A friend of mine was sharing this, like sharing stuff about Vision OS and sharing stuff about AR, and he found this this demo someone made of, it's like summoning a demon thing, and it's this AR recording, and it works the same way. Like you go to a website, and it shows up, and you put it in. So there's a mechanism. It's kind of built into your browser now to be able to render this kind of stuff. So you go to the URL, and it lets you put the spots somewhere, and then this little animated demon guy comes out, and this giant, like all these effects go all over the place. And when even looking through your phone, it's really kind of cool because you look around and it's like this huge animated effects going on all around you.
Yeah.
And now you imagine doing that with a headset, because I've tried the Vision Pro, for instance, and I've tried like some Meta Quest stuff. And when you're in one of those headsets, it's very impressive. So it's like you combine the two things and you can have quite the experience. Although I was always wondering if, like, I guess you can dance in like some of these headsets. You can, like the Meta ones, you can. I wouldn't do it with the $4,000 Vision Pro.
I don't know. I feel like
thing's really
there
heavy
needs to
too.
be some progress before you
but like,
get
but like,
because they're bulky and it seems like it would be dangerous. I don't know.
Well, the ones from Meta, they're pretty light, and I was always, and there's games where you're doing a lot of exercising, and there are games where you're like kind of dancing around, swinging your arms and stuff. I always wondered, like, if these tools, if you could get a recording like you've done, Clyde, and you combine them with these VR headsets, whether you could have an actual useful kind of distance education product here. Like, one of the problems we've had in education with like doing distance education is, using screens and stuff, we found that that doesn't generally work. I think that's pretty clear consensus, that it generally, in a lot of cases, doesn't really work that well for a lot of use cases, and especially something like dance. But I wonder, what do you think about like the future, trying to combine this? As you said, you were trying to use it for education purposes. Do you see this as something that you would want to? You see this as some way of like democratizing access to dance education for hip hop, or is it something you'd want to use just like with people in person, or like how do you see it maybe using this technology in the future?
Well, yeah, for sure, it is the future, and I guess where I could start is with what I was told from studies that were being done. I'm sure you're probably aware of some of these studies. Medical students, they found, actually retain more knowledge of using the VR headsets versus through the books, right? So that's been the way that it's been forever. It's like you read the book, you can do the same thing on screen, but they actually the immersive experience with the technology, with the goggles, they retain so much more and test so much higher. So it's definitely going that way. So for me, with dancing, with movement, it's more just about the reference. So you can reference it, and then you can take off the headset, and then you can go and practice it. So it's just a way to reference it, because of course, when you have things on a 2D screen, then you lose information. You don't have that vantage point. You've got to indeed turn this side, that side, or what have you, in order to get that information. And teaching online definitely demonstrated that.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you see the back of my foot? Can you see behind? I can't see you, so
I can't. Chrissy could tell stories about the pandemic teaching of dance, and
Terrible.
it was
yeah. So it takes that away. But ironically enough, that's how I learned. I learned from watching TV. And at the time that I began to learn, not to say there weren't VCRs, there were. We just didn't have one. So you were just using your memory and what you thought you saw, and so that's where a lot of the problems came in, is that, you thought you saw it this way, but it was really done that way. And now we have a way of archiving that and saying, this is the way, this is, and what's so crazy is that, well, I wouldn't say it's crazy, but it was really cool that I was contacted by the CID. It's the Council on International Dance. They sit in, the UN has this thing called UNESCO, right? And so I forget what it stands for, but it's, it's about education. And, so if you went to Spain, right, and you were like, I want to learn flamenco dance, how would you know where to go? If every studio was just like, we teach flamenco, we teach flamenco, we teach. And the UN goes around and they say, we identify these certain studios and or these teachers as authentic flamenco teachers, dancers, practitioners, what have you. They reached out to me and said, Clyde Evans, we recognize you as an authentic teacher of hip hop dance. So I was just like, all right, yeah. So with that responsibility, now I'm just like, okay, I've got to make sure that I'm putting out the right thing, and teaching at Drexel specifically set me up for that, because it was like the guy who was teaching before, who now teaches over at UCLA in California, UCLA, California. Yeah. He said to me, these kids are paying for it. They have to know the right information. So then that just made us dig deeper into the research to make sure that what we were saying was exactly what it is that they needed to learn, and we could call it that. So
again, my frame of reference is more martial arts because I mean, a lot of people say martial arts is a form, like the katas and stuff are kind of a form of dance. That's like getting into like people get mad sometimes you say that, but like it is. I thought it's kind of like it is a movement art. It is like it's dance in some ways. It has a lot of similarities, but it's what you're saying in my mind. It describes how dojos are. Like there are competing organizations. They're competing, like there's competing dojos, but they all have there's like the Shotokan karate technique, but there are subtle differences between how like you do the katas, but there is like a reference of like this is what this kata entails. I wonder if you would by trying to codify this, you would end up with everybody doing the same thing, or would you end up with more like the martial arts world where it's like, okay, technically we're all doing the same thing, but it's all everybody has a slight spin on it, but we have that reference material which lets us stay
no matter what. I mean,
that's
even
what I thought.
Ballet has a spin, and that's pretty codified. Everybody knows like the progression of a ballet bar, but that doesn't mean anybody's ballet bar looks the same.
But I guess my point is like you can go anywhere in the world and you can go and say, I want to see a Shotokan karate practitioner, and like you can recognize it as that or particular martial art, even if there are differences in how the specific dojos, do things or whatever. Like you can recognize karate versus, other martial arts and the specific sub-disciplines. So when you're doing with hip hop, like, is like, I guess I'm saying, like, what is your hope for this project, world that you end up with? Do you think this will help spread hip hop more than it already is, or do you think it's just going to help people to understand it more deeply? Like, what do you think from a student perspective? Because I think hip hop is already pretty popular in the world. So, like, what do you hope this is going to end up?
Are you just trying to define vocabulary? That actually would be so helpful.
That's what I mean. Like, you get it. As I said,
it would be so nice to be like, do a XYZ, and everybody know what that is.
That is what I meant. That is what Chrissy.
That's frustrating. It's like nobody. Yeah. I'm not a hip hop teacher, but
Yeah, in martial arts, you have that too. You have that too. Everything has you have names, and so when you teach it, you can tell students like do this, do this, do this, and then once you understand what the move is and the particular dojo you're in, you can instruction becomes more efficient. So I guess that's one of the benefits of it.
Yeah, for sure, efficiency, and I think the answer is really all the above.
Yeah,
it would be cool indeed to help spread it. That wasn't the impetus for this. This was just for an extended learning tool.
Yeah.
Extended learning and reference tool. So because everyone's got one of these things in their pocket now, all over the world, if you have one, then indeed you can then have access to this technology. And so that being said, if indeed you have that, then it's like it just brings you closer to these places where these dances are being practiced, where they're being created, where they're being innovated. Because the kid all the way over in the Netherlands is like trying to do it, or they see it in a battle form, or even in a movie, and they can then look that up and see what it is, and then here's the vocabulary of everything you just seen in that movie or that show or what have you, and now they have a authentic representation of it, and they don't have to guess.
There's technology like in the iPhones, for instance, and in the software, you can film yourself. And then you can have the phone detect what you're doing movement wise, and then you could compare it maybe to your reference. So you could use it as to see how close you are to the reference, for instance.
Yeah.
Like I think that'd be kind of cool. And I think also you could, to a less accurate degree, you could use the phone you have to record yourself. And I wonder if and then like create an AR version of yourself dancing. I wonder if like this could be this technology if you simplify it a bit and you get it on people's phones, and it's not going to be as good as what you did for $20,000, but I wonder if this could help people share movement. Like one of the things that on the online world, when it's something that can be digitized easily, you see communities of people sharing it all over the place. Like you'll see, that's what you get tons of art, you get tons of video, because these things are native to the platforms, but you get people showing dances a lot, I guess, but as a video form, but it's not really the same thing as like, I don't know. I feel like this is a way of making movement something much more of a native digital asset, if you understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I'm making any sense, but it seems to me like a really cool thing. Like we're taking something which exists only in the real world and a more tangible way kind of converting it to digital. It's not just a 2D movie of what someone was performing. It's actually like you have a volume and you have a three-dimensional perspective of it. And I think that's kind of cool as we're really moving into this space now with AR and VR and mixed reality and all this stuff, that I think there's just a lot of experimentation going on, and your particular project here really stood out to us as something I think that is a really cool, really pioneering here.
Yeah, yeah. And as you mentioned, I'm looking up right now, a friend of mine, Kwesi Johnson over in the UK, he's doing a program exactly like you're talking about. So they're using the phones to be able to create augmented reality dance movement. And so he's over at the Cultural Assembly in the UK, and he's shown me some of what he's doing. Indeed, you're right. The definition is not as crisp. It's definitely, a lot more less refined, let's just say.
Yeah.
And so, but it is possible. And the thing about it is that for movement purposes, you don't necessarily need all the definition that we have been displaying with our capture to communicate, to educate, to dance movement. But it's really cool to have both of them for the sake of being able to share dance.
Right.
So I agree with you. When you share it, just to share it, they can be done in different formats and things of that nature. But indeed, it's being done now. Exactly what you're talking about. So yeah.
So if you digitize dance like this means theoretically you could be part of some future golden record, like sent out into space. Maybe aliens pick it up, and so the golden record famously has some music on it, some like audio. You could have dance on there, and the aliens would be able to figure out the 3D AR protocol, and be like, this is how humans move. I don't know.
So
that sounds cool.
So there's 10 dances in your little in the
proof of
catalog.
concept. Yeah.
So
catalog,
what are they?
Gosh. Oh, good question. It's been done so long ago. Let's see. We have the Roger Rabbit. We have the Running Man. We have SpongeBob. There's one called the Reject, which technically is skipping backwards in place. And I'm just gonna for
these names are fantastic.
I know what you're talking about.
I'm gonna park it right here for a second.
Yeah.
Here's the interesting thing too that I forgot to mention. Because some of these dances, unless you have knowledge as a dancer, I know Christy can attest to this, we can kind of figure out as dancers, like, oh, I see what they're doing. I see what they're trying to do. But people who are non-dancers don't know how to move their body that way. And they don't understand where to place their weight. And so all of a sudden now this thing that you are helping them reference is coming out wrong. And so in the future modalities of this programming, we will begin to explore how we communicate where the weight is landing, maybe by color spots on the ground. Like let's say it's red, so that it's the heaviest weight versus like yellow, which is like a medium weight, and things of that nature. So which is one of the advantages we believe that this technology will be able to provide is something like that, because again, in 2D or in just regular video recordings, you don't have that. You don't have the ability to be able to do that, but now we can, and Drexel has everything. So I'm talking to the nursing college, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Clyde, we have force plates in our studios or what have you, and it shows how much force you're exerting on one leg versus the other. People walking, all that stuff." I'm like, yes. We need that because that communicates that type of information.
If you don't figure those components out, and it's very difficult to explain, like transfer of weight and where you push off. I mean, that's like,
I feel like
very difficult to explain to people.
I feel like with the technology you have now, I mean, you could build something with combining all that stuff. You could have like a Vision Pro headset or something. You could display, as you say, like the color coded things. If you have the force plates hooked in there, they can provide feedback to the application running, so you could like literally know how much force, whether you're in the right range. Like you could put together some kind of proof of concept of all this stuff at a place like like Drexel.
Yeah.
Again, we're not speaking for Drexel, but
Yeah.
but like I think it would be cool if that happens. Like I can see just in my mind, because from what I understand about how the software works and how the headsets work and everything, I'm like, yeah, you could probably get it to work. If you get enough people the right skills together, and that would be really cool. To be able to do that one of the things that is I'm hopeful about, like, the whole virtual reality, mixed reality things happening, is because it seems very dystopian on the surface, because it kind of and it can be very, very dystopian. You're putting a headsets on, you're kind of isolating yourself from reality, but you can also use it in these ways. The way that Apple does it, their emphasis is on mixed reality, which I think is the more appropriate way, the less dystopian way, because it's supposed to be theoretically about you being part of the world, and then you're just kind of mixing things together for your own benefit. So something like this, like, I think in the the more distant future, yeah, maybe you could come up with some kind of very unique experiences that are mixing the digital with the real world in a way that we've never had before. Like, we have, you have like video games, like dance video games for a long time that have very simple pressure pads on them to do, like, Dance Revolution. You have headsets now. Like, you have all the pieces there, just not all, refined enough for this to work.
Excited about that. That's
yeah,
cool. It'd be like, oh, you want to learn how to do the Roger
exactly.
Rabbit? You can't figure it out here? Go check this out at home and play around with it.
Yeah, it starts with a video on your phone. Then it maybe goes to an augmented reality recording, like you've done, Clyde. So now you can look on your phone, your iPad or something, you can see the angles and stuff. And then it maybe goes to something you can run on your headset, on your Vision Pro future version or Meta headset or something. And now you're like there watching the person. And then maybe it evolves to, now I'm being instructed in this virtual mixed reality space. And then maybe it moves to, like, I have a pad on the ground too that can actually provide me feedback. And you can just see the stepwise of where you can go with the technology. And I actually think it's way more doable than, like, in the beginning of this conversation, I was like, I don't know, is this possible? Now I feel like, based on the work you've done and, like, what I know about how the software can work, yeah, I think it's actually pretty interesting future that could be coming down the pike. Something I never thought about before with dance. So
yeah, and
cool.
What's interesting too is you mentioned, like, the Vision Pro, that the technology and the capture is all ready for all of those platforms. And that was really interesting. Like, Jason from Microsoft was just like, yeah, you can throw these glasses on. And I mean, they've shown me some stuff that, again, they've done in the past. And I'm just like wowed over what they were. I wish I could show it to you, but they have taken that stuff down since they're no longer producing it.
Okay.
And so there is this thing that I believe they're still using called holoportation. I don't know if you've seen holoportation.
I don't think I've seen holoportation.
So you can be together in the virtual world using the glasses, the goggles, and it's like you're in the same room. And you can record this, and then you can shrink it down. You can look at it. You can walk around it. Like, it's just totally amazing what they're able to do.
All the goggles have, or the VR systems have that. Apple has something. I think they're calling it, I think it's just Share Play or something, where you're virtual in the same space.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know which the holoportation works, because I haven't seen that one, but the Apple one is a little weird. Like, you're kind of like a ghostly person. You don't have any legs, so not good for dancing. But I think Meta one, they don't have legs either. No one has legs in these VR environments.
Aren't they just like heads, like floating torsos? No,
they're like torso. They're like torsos, sort of. But the way the new software update means that, like, if we are both wearing headsets, and you in my space, you'll look like you're sitting in front of me. I will look like you're sitting in front of me. And here's the part that's really weird and freaky. If I got up and moved, then in your physical space, you will see me walk around your physical space.
That's creepy.
It's really cool, though. It's really cool. And this is just the early days of this technology.
I like the idea. I love the idea of, like, especially hip hop. It's like, because I feel like it's trickier to figure out sometimes. You know what I mean? I think it's a very cool way to address hip hop education.
Yeah, I can't dance. I could do martial arts really well. I can do that surprisingly well, but I can't do hip hop dancing.
You would be the perfect candidate for this.
I would be, because you're explaining, like, slow motion, like, how do you? That's all the things you're saying are so similar to how you do martial arts. I've told this to Chrissy for years. That's my frame of reference for this stuff, and I think the overlap is there's a lot of overlap between dance and like how you learn dancing, how you learn martial arts. So yeah, maybe I would be a good candidate. I still don't have much hope that I'll be able to dance very well. Chrissy, you see me dance. What, I can't. Ballet definitely not my thing. Maybe I can have a better chance with hip hop. I tried. What did I try? You told me to do.
You try to plie.
I do at plie. It was so bad. The little like 5-year-old children laughed at me. It was very funny.
Well, this is why, especially with we started with hip hop, and because it's social, and so not to say that ballet isn't, but that's not the social thing. That's like a
hip-hop
fine
is
art.
Definitely more social.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, it's
in,
more
in
social.
the best
So
way,
right.
In the
So
best
these
way.
dances are things that you would practice, just at a party, because that someone's gonna get married, there's gonna be a birthday, you're going out to the club, it's gonna happen at some point in your life, and so now you're able to be a part of and contribute to the environment just simply because you're gonna have music on. People are gonna dance. So yeah.
So a funny thing was, I remember a couple of years ago, someone was like, "Can you teach me how to dance?" And I was like, "What kind of dance?" And they're like the dance at like a wedding. And I was like,
Yeah, wedding dances.
"You mean like just like staying on time?" Like I was like, like I'm like a classically trained dancer. I'm like, you don't want me to teach you like a rondejam, I'm like,
I don't even know what that is.
I guess I could, but like, what does the lesson plan look like for like, okay, well,
learn to sway in time.
beat,
That's what I need.
Cupid shuffle,
I remember this. You were. I think you could have made a bunch of money doing that, because like there are people like me. Well, there are lots of people like me and who just can't dance, don't know how to dance, like don't know how to dance for things like that. It's like I don't know what the genre of dance is. Or you're something like you do at a wedding, just learn to sway in place or something. But you laugh. But those of us who are like who are not so movement inclined or whatever, we would benefit from some instruction just on the very simple basics of how to keep time and not step on feet and stuff.
Sure. And what's interesting about what you're saying, Stephen? You mentioned about the kata of karate being like dance, and what makes it like dance is not the movement, but is the rhythm.
Yes, very
right.
Much
so the rhythm of it, and so when we teach in the same way, because we're dancing to music most of the time. I don't all the time, but dancing to music has a rhythm, and because of that, that's where the paths cross. Now, what you'd be surprised to know is that in order for a practitioner or a student to come to class, they have to let's just say humble themselves. It can be really unnerving to be around other people and be so vulnerable to show that you can't dance.
Yep.
Having the use of this technology allows you to be able to practice this in your own home, in a setting that you feel comfortable in, and then you can go and apply it. So it's like I think they call it like theory, and then it's a practicum. You know what I mean? So it's like, I can do it at home by myself. I can get my sea legs, I can get my basics down, and then I can go to a class.
I mean, you still need to do it in real life. I don't think this is gonna. This doesn't replace.
Does not replace.
This type of technology could never, I think, replace doing it with like a real person, a real instructor. But it gives you
it gives you a tool.
Help. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Independently on your own, in your own time, you can look like a fool in your bedroom, and then, go out into the world and take on the day.
Yeah, like me, you can just look like a fool everywhere. Try to dance. So it's been really great having you. I think we are just about out of time. So before we do our final wrap up, you tell us, where can people find out more about you, your Danceology project, all of this stuff? Where they can find you on the interwebs?
Absolutely. So you could definitely go to the museumofdance.org, and that is really a museum without walls. We don't have a physical building yet. Right now, it just exists in that capacity. And so the founder lives out in San Francisco. So we'll be, I'm sorry, she goes between San Francisco and Santa Fe, New Mexico. So we're doing stuff in both places. And the hope is that we will do things here in Philadelphia. We want to be able to launch things, keep me local. And that would be awesome. And so hopefully, indeed, in the future, colleges, other institutions will be able to onboard this technology and use it to instruct dance. But you can definitely find us there, museumofdance.org.
Excellent. And I'll put stuff in the show notes. Chrissy sent me a link, apparently.
Yep, I did.
So hopefully we can I'll be able to try out this AR stuff afterwards.
Nice.
Right now, Chrissy, what time is it?
It's time for you to wrap it up, Steve. You got to wrap it up.
So if you like what we're doing here on this podcast, please subscribe on YouTube if you're watching there and click the bell, like it, share it. These things help the algorithm notice that we exist. If you'd like to get to the whole audio backlog of this podcast, it's at jagcast.show. You can subscribe there or anywhere else you get your podcast. Our main website is jenkintownartsgarage.com. We're also on the Instagram and Facebook at Jenkintown Arts Garage. And if you want to help us out monetarily, go to jenkintownartsgarage.com/coffee and buy us a coffee. This always confuses Chrissy. It's the service is called, buy a coffee. It's not really buying your coffee.
So,
but and of course, if you could go to our website here, I'm showing on screen, jenkintownartsgarage.com. You can subscribe to our newsletter, so you'll get alerts about when we update stuff like new episodes of podcasts, like the one you're listening to right now. Maybe you got informed from the email. So do all that stuff. Subscribe to all of our things. It'll really help us out. And follow Clyde. Go to museumofdance.org because that sounds amazing.
It is amazing.
Cool. So
well, thank you, Clyde. This was so cool. I'm so happy we got it going here.
Me too.
Yeah, I know. It was really fun. This is probably one of my favorite.
A rocky transition, but this was very cool. So
it's probably I think it'd be one of my favorite guests because this is just like right in my wheelhouse. It's exactly what we wanted for the show.
Nice.
Stuff like this. So stay tuned. You get to see our cool outro, our cool outro video that I made.
Nice.
So I guess we will see you next time, right?
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
We're learning to break the ice.